So welcome those of you joining us. We are going to be starting in about 20 minutes. My name is Katie Crysdale and welcome to the 2021 POOLaide Webinars. Thank you so much for being here today. Really excited about today's presenters. They will be joining us in about 20 minutes. Until then, I want to talk a little bit about the sessions we've had this week. This is the culmination of week 2 of the webinars. So the webinars are running this year from March 1st to March 31st of 2021. We've got 14 different sessions covering a variety of different topics. And the focus this year with the different sessions was really identifying some different areas that aquatic and recreation professionals really need to develop their skill set as well as their awareness and their knowledge. So I'm really excited. The presenters today are going to be bringing a valuable perspective that is missing, in my opinion, in aquatics. We have a lot of aging communities. We have a lot of people with different mobility, cognitive, physical challenges or impairments. And so really excited to hear from them later today about how we can really focus on the person when we do our programming. Speaking for myself as someone who's worked in aquatics 18 years, who has done programming, created schedules, created outreach for different demographics at different facilities I've worked at, I can honestly say that we never thought about the end user first. We only thought about our facility space, what pool space did we have, what instructors we have available, what would be well attended in terms of revenue, what would be popular in terms of subscription or filling the class. And those are all important things that we do in aquatics and recreation, but I do think that we need to understand the limitations of that process. And I'm really excited that our presenters today will be touching on the end user, the person who is consuming recreation, and what it means in their life and the way we can build on their needs, or at least center their needs in our thought process. So that's going to be today. Today is Friday, March 12th. It is Friday. I know I'm very excited for the weekend, and I hope you are too. Let's talk a little bit about the sessions we've had so far this week. It was a great second week. We had a variety of different presenters. So on Monday, March 8th, we had a session from Katie Crysdale, who is located in Loudoun County, Virginia. She is doing her doctorate in responsiveness and the cognitive capacity of lifeguards. She talked with us about working with different generations. So in the aquatic industry, many of us are familiar working with a variety of generations. Often as we get older, we continue to work with younger generations, such as people in their teens, their early 20s, even as we progress and get older. So I know for myself now, I'm in my mid-30s. It is different relating to 16-year-olds now than it was in the past when I was only 25 or 20. But Katie Crysdale really looked at all of the generations in the workplace and took us all the way to older generations, including I believe it was baby boomers and Gen X, to understand their social and cultural and historic expectations based on the way they were raised, the conditions of their childhood, and how we as aquatic professionals, recreation professionals, we can navigate those different things going on in our pools, in our staff rooms, in our team meetings, in our communication, and hopefully identify the different ways that we can relate to as many generations as possible. Certainly, every region is different, every facility is different, every manager or director, every leadership person is different, but giving us some really helpful strategies for looking at where those people might be coming from when they enter our workplace as staff. So that was what we looked at on Monday. That was working with different generations with Katie Crysdale. On Wednesday, March 10th, we had a great session with Dr. Audrey Giles from the University of Ottawa. She is a full professor in the Faculty of Human Kinetics. She has been involved in the aquatic industry since she was a lifeguard. Essentially, she was a lifeguard. She's from Ontario. She went to Northern Canada to run outdoor pools in the summer season. and then parlayed that experience into her research, looking at the trying to figure out the best way to summarize it because she does many different things, but looking at the research or the limitations, I guess, of different swimming lesson curriculums that we have in Canada, as well as understanding the data of drowning in Canada. Yes, we know a lot of drowning happens in bathtubs. Yes, we know a lot of drowning happens with young males. But what do we know about drowning rates across Canada when they're pegged to population? And so she showed that statistically, for example, the province of Ontario is a very large province. And so it appears to have a large number of fatal drownings each year. But when it's pegged to population, then the Northwest Territories, for example, which is the northern part of Canada, close to the Arctic Circle, with a lot of Indigenous populations, rates are 16 times higher than, for example, the province of Ontario year over year. And so she did a really interesting kind of synopsis of her research, looking at why that is, why are water safety and drowning prevention campaigns not getting uptake from childhood to adulthood? What are the white biases or colonial biases we bring to our efforts to educate? And then how can we adapt those so that they are culturally sensitive, culturally appropriate, and meaningful in our desire to reduce water safety and drowning fatalities? So a little bit more of an academic session, but really, I think, an important perspective that I know a lot of people will come back to that recording when it is available. As always, with any of these sessions, if you keep an eye on the show notes page, that is where you will see the webinar recording when it is available. Or if you're on YouTube a lot, you can subscribe to our channel and you'll receive a notification as soon as it's released. We do also put the recordings up on our Facebook page when they're available, but I would anticipate that you'll start to see those getting released at the end of next week and the beginning of the following week. And therefore, it'll take us into April to get all of the different recordings posted. So let me post a link to our Facebook page in the chat box. Thanks to those of you who are here so far this morning. We will be starting a few minutes after the hour, so in about 10, 12 minutes. Thanks so much for those of you who've been attending these webinars live. It's really nice for our presenters to have an audience, to see where you're located. If you want to go ahead and put your location in the chat box, that does give our presenters a sense of audience throughout the session. And although they are based in Regina, Saskatchewan, a lot of our presenters, as you know, are based in Canada. It's still really nice to see connection to different communities. So pop your location in the chat box if you're comfortable. I know Dr. Giles on Wednesday, there were several locations, like I believe it was Corvallis, Oregon, that she had a direct connection to, which is pretty amazing. So our session today will be coming up shortly. Let's take a look already at what's happening next week. So next week is week 3 of the POOLaide webinars. We have 3 sessions coming up next week. I did give you guys a tip on Wednesday, a tip off. There is a really, really good big prizes available during Monday's webinar. So if you have the opportunity to attend the webinar on Monday live, it is a great topic. It is a great presenter, but we do also have a prize donated. We have 3 prizes actually donated by Water ID Germany, and they're each worth about $450 Canadian. They can be won by anyone. So if you have the opportunity to come on Monday, definitely Monday is a good day to come on out. Monday's presentation is called Project Gaps, Who's Responsible for What? And that session will be covered by Jamie Lopes, who is an aquatic facility engineer from Aquatic Engineering and Design, which is located in Waterloo, Ontario. So he only designs, creates the blueprints for different swimming pools across Canada. He's going to be taking a high-level approach to what are the roles that different people have in a pool renovation, pool construction project, new pool project, and even those of you who are not deeply involved with facility operations or building management. I think you will find his session valuable just to kind of understand who's who in the zoo and the different balls that are in the air. Because I know often myself as a consultant working with different aquatic facilities for different reasons, Sometimes the aquatic manager thinks that the building operator is doing something, or the recreation manager thinks the facilities director is doing something, or this contract, and everybody assumes everything else, and then it never ends up happening. So that is often a challenge that we see with these projects, and they result in very expensive change orders. So revisions to the plan or stoppages and starts. So I think it's a great session for anybody to attend. There's no previous experience required. You don't have to be doing a project to feel like you need to come to this session. Jamie is an experienced presenter as well, so it's not going to be a very cerebral, dry engineer's. He is a certified operator instructor just like me, and so he has tremendous experience presenting to a group, and we talked a lot about the audience and making sure the content is approachable to everyone. So welcome. I'm seeing lots of names that I recognize. Pop your location in the chat box if you can for our presenters. I see Jean is here from Massachusetts. Kenya is here from New Jersey. Welcome, welcome. I see Erin is here from Saskatchewan. Welcome, Estevan. Nice to see lots of locations representing. I am based near Calgary, Alberta. Our presenters today will be near Regina, Saskatchewan, and I am expecting lots of other people join us just before we get started a few minutes after the hour. I want to say a big thank you to those of you who have been coming out to these sessions live. I do know there's a lot of competing demands on your time, and that webinars, virtual anything, is kind of done, right? We've all reached saturation point with virtual events and meetings. So I do appreciate those of you who come out to hear our presenters. They've worked really hard on their sessions, tailoring them to issues that are most relevant to aquatic professionals, or ensuring that they're capturing any specific things that I requested. And so it's always really, really wonderful to see the audience that can appreciate their work, because they do donate their time and their expert knowledge. So it's amazing to have that kind of collaboration in our industry. So I'm going to pin temporarily the link if you'd like to enter for the prize. And I've already lost it in the chat box. Oh my goodness. Let me pin this. So I have temporarily pinned the link for today if you would like to win the Canadian Red Cross towel, duck. This is the duck mascot from the Swimming and Water Safety Program preschool. Also have a Fox 40 whistle. We've got a POOLaide badge and some Post-its. So if you would like the opportunity to win these items as a package, maybe not for you, maybe you want to give it to your staff, maybe you want to do an in-service prize, whatever you would like to do, you can hop on over to the link that I have pinned in the chat box. You can like us on Instagram. So I am Katie of Lakeview Aquatic Consultants. Like the post this morning talking about our amazing presenters and the session we will be covering. And then pop a comment about programs you might have at your facility, whether wet or dry, regarding either seniors or addressing the needs of different populations that may have different abilities or physical limitations or impairments that prevent them from accessing quote unquote normal or mainstream programs. Because I really want to start getting people thinking about different options that they can do at their facility beyond the dreaded aquatic fitness class. So whether you love or hate aquatic fitness classes, they serve a purpose, but I do think it ends up being this catch-all that doesn't meet everyone's needs. I'd really love to hear what programs you are doing at your facilities to really get some ideas going, because I think that's a big problem, is we don't know what to do. Myself included, until my last aquatic facility, we started an aqua healing program, but that was really spearheaded by the instructor who came to me as the aquatic facility manager and said, hey, we don't have anything to capture, for example, younger people rehabbing from an accident. We don't have any prenatal, postnatal. We don't have any rehabilitation, mobility. And we couldn't capture each of those audiences separately, but we could offer a specialized aqua healing class by this instructor who was qualified to offer a program like that. So that was a whole new experience for me. I'm going to be starting my introduction to our presenters in just one moment, and then I'll be passing over the screen to them so that they can get started with their slides, their content. As always, if you are new to these webinars, there will be a presentation followed by a Q&A. So make sure that you're adding your questions to the chat box. I'll be tracking those throughout the session, as well as any general comments are always welcome in the chat box. We want this to be an engaging event as much as possible. And if you're multitasking with us in a different window while you're answering emails or doing scheduling, I also totally get that, right? Webinars are a dime a dozen, so you do you in terms of however it is grabbing the content that we have today. So let me go ahead and pull up the link for today, and I will pin it shortly in the chat box so that everybody knows where they can find the updated information. Our presenters have kindly provided their slides, and they are on the show notes for today. So if you are the type of person who likes to download presentation slides, print them out, write notes, you can go ahead and do that. Let me put them in the chat box. What were our session for today, and I will repin that in just a few minutes. All right, so I'm going to start my introduction. Thanks everyone for being here today. My name is Katie Crysdale, and it is Friday, March 12th. The session we are going to be doing today is entitled Person-Centered, Person-Directed Approach to Recreation. Our speakers today are Shauna Reles and Alicia Andrusiak, and I'm going to read their biographies. So Shauna Reles is the Eden Community Builder at Eden Care Communities in Regina, Saskatchewan. Her focus is to create a culture of care that is person-centered and person-directed, and to create an environment where individuals are able to flourish and thrive. Shauna has been working with seniors for 9 years in both supportive living and long-term care settings. Shauna has her bachelor's degree in sport and recreation studies with a therapeutic recreation major and a minor in psychology. Shauna is passionate about providing person-centered and person-directed care to individuals of all ages and abilities, and focusing on individual strengths to help improve quality of life. Alicia Andrusiak is a recreation therapist at a long-term care home called Regina Lutheran Home. She has worked there over 3 years. Alicia has spent most of her career working with older adults and seniors in long-term care, but also has worked with an adult day support program and younger adults with diverse cognitive and physical abilities in group home settings. Alicia graduated with a bachelor's of sport and recreation management with a major in therapeutic recreation and a minor in psychology. Alicia is a certified therapeutic recreation specialist. In her experience as a recreation therapist, no matter how busy her day gets, she feels a strong connection to the purpose of her work and the individuals she serves through the relationships that are built. So I really wanted to make sure I got those bios out to give you a full grasp of their experience that they're bringing to this session today, which I think is very, very valuable. So I'm going to pull up the presentation. We'll ask our presenters to turn on their cameras. I will disappear into the chat box once we do an audio check. And I want everyone to put a big welcome in the chat box to our presenters, please.
All right. Thank you so much, Katie. Very much appreciated. Hello, everyone. It's so great to see everyone from all over. We're so excited to be here with you today to talk about person-centered, person-directed approach to recreational programming. So Katie, thank you for the wonderful introduction. Again, I am Shauna Reles. I'm the Eden Community Builder at Eden Care Communities. So my role in the organization is to guide them through the Eden Alternative Philosophy of Care to provide person-centered, person-directed care to those who live, those who work, and to those who visit our home. So I received my Bachelor of Sport and Recreation Studies with my therapeutic recreation major at the University of Regina. I've had the opportunity and pleasure to work in multiple areas throughout our city, including being a recreational leader at a long-term care home working with seniors, and to create community programs for vulnerable populations.
All right. Thanks, Shauna. My name is Alicia Andrusiak. As our introduction mentioned, I do have a Bachelor of Sport and Recreation Studies, and I am a certified therapeutic recreation specialist. Currently, right now, I am working as a recreation therapist in a long-term care home. Previous to this, I have been a recreation coordinator, also working primarily in long-term care, but also in an adult day support program. And previous to this, I've had a job where I did support individuals experiencing cognitive and physical disabilities, involving them in community participation and supportive activity of daily living. Now, as you may see from our introductions, Shauna and I have primarily worked in long-term care and also with older seniors for a majority of our career so far. So a lot of the stories that we'll be sharing today will probably be focused a little bit more on that. But we just want to emphasize that these stories, again, can be applied to all ages and all abilities. We just obviously love seniors here. So as we go through the presentation today, the objectives that we will cover will help you to understand a better understanding of person-centered and person-directed care, being able to identify individual strengths, assessing, planning, implementing, and evaluating programs, being able to adapt programs. We'll provide you with some further available resources, and we'll cover some domains of well-being.
So our goal at Eden Care Communities is to offer opportunities for individuals of all ages to live their best life, a life worth living with meaning, purpose, and choice. So this is the core of our philosophy of care and support. The person that is being supported is at the center of it all. So supporting this approach is the adoption of the Eden alternative. We believe that every person at any age can grow and learn. It's about creating a human habitat where life revolves around close and continuing contact with plants, animals, children, and music. So what is person-centered and person-directed care? Person-centered care is where decisions are based on an individual's unique needs, preferences, and values. Person-centered care is really moving away from that task-oriented approach and moving towards that holistic approach that honors an individual. So the words we use are important. Words can drive our thoughts, which then drive our actions. At Eden Care Communities, we use words that honor the individuals we serve. For example, we use the word home and not facility, the word move-in and not admission. It's important to look at the words you are using during your planning and programming and make sure that they focus on the individual's needs, preferences, and values. So person-centered care looks at the individual's strengths. It focuses on the person as a whole and not their disability or disease. Our role as care partners and program leads is to adjust our attitudes and build support networks for those we serve. So when you individualize interventions, you're being person-centered. When you advocate for someone, that's person-centered. And when you honor a person's preferences, that is person-centered. So some strategies for you guys to take away when it comes to person-centered is listen to the individual. Put that person in the center and show them that their passion, their needs, their interests, that they're important. Ask the individual what they want. Get to know them. What's their background? What's their history? What's their interests? What makes them happy, sad, and scared? Be involved. Do the program with them. Don't just set it up. Do it with them. Focus on their strengths. Offer support. Give high fives, pat on the backs. Be present in those difficult moments, even if it's not related to the program itself. Celebrate. That's the fun thing. Celebrate their achievements. Tell them they're doing a great job. And lead the way. This one is so important. Others will see your successes in person-centered care and they'll want to follow. So that's person-centered care. What is person-directed? So person-directed care goes one step further than person-centered care. Decisions are directed by the individual. They tell you what they want. They help direct their care, and the programs, they truly do make it their own. So person-directed care includes choice, dignity, respect, self-determination, and purposeful living. So this photo that you guys are looking at shows person-directed care. For this elder's 100th birthday, she wanted to ride on the back of a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. She directed the activity and reached out to her daughter to help achieve it. She rode up and down the street on the back of the motorcycle. No one told her what she needed to do or what they thought would be appropriate for her 100th birthday. The decision was made by her for her. So pretty remarkable story. So when it comes to person-centered and person-directed programming, oftentimes when we plan a program, we are person-centered. We try to create something that they would enjoy, that brings them value. We set goals for the individual, whether it be maybe to improve functioning or to increase socialization. When we plan person-directed programming, we're truly letting the individual or group lead the program. So we are there to support them. They create their own goals, they contribute their ideas, and they help to execute the activity. So person-directed programming is so important. Why? I myself have never been 60 years old. I've never been 70, I've never been 80, 90, 100. These individuals, they are the experts in what they want. Involve them in the programs and it will be successful.
So leading off of Shauna's examples there, Regina Lutheran Home has had the privilege of working with local creative arts organizations with a special project called Hello in There. This project proved itself to be an excellent example of person-centered and person-directed programming. The two individuals you see in these photos here, along with a few other elders in our home, took part in an 8-week workshop where they engaged in storytelling and memory sharing activities. The result was a visual arts display created in significance of something of great meaning to that participant's life, along with a storybook filled with their fondest memories and proudest moments. Family and friends were then invited to a beautiful reception held in our home to take part in a fun afternoon of showcasing their products to all participants. So you can see here in the left, the visual art display is a crafted airplane model for this individual. He was somebody who flew airplanes in the Air Force and had a deep passion for aircrafts in general. This project was completely driven and directed by the elders because they were the ones who highlighted the true meaning of their own life, and it's a prime example of that person-centered and person-directed approach. This next slide here shows a photo of an individual who loves to bake. She spent a large part of her career working in a kitchen and found true purpose in baking for others to enjoy. This individual doesn't necessarily enjoy participating in games and activities, but has always expressed interest in baking. Taking a person-directed approach, understanding that providing her the opportunity to bake helps bring a higher level of meaning to her life in comparison to other activities that may be offered, the baking activity was completely within her control. She is the one who initiates the request. She tells us when she wants to bake in the afternoon. She would pick out her own recipes from her own recipe book and decide how her baking was enjoyed for everybody. She was always proud of what she creates, and she would sometimes share it with the elders in the home during our tea and coffee time, or other times she would bake something for a staff in celebration of a special event that was happening in their own life.
So the next we're going to talk about is combating loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. So individuals of any age can suffer from loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. So loneliness is the pain we feel when we want but cannot have companionship. Helplessness is the pain we feel when we always receive care but never give care. And boredom is the pain we feel when our lives lack variety and spontaneity. So I myself have experienced all of these: loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. I experienced all three of these when the pandemic first started. I was lonely, I was helpless, I didn't know what was happening, and I was bored. Things were taken away from us, our ability to just go out. So individuals in your guys' programs may be suffering from loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. They may have joined the program in hopes to alleviate these feelings. So individuals can be surrounded by a lot of people, but still feel lonely. During programming, allow individuals to build close and continuing relationships. You can do this by offering icebreakers so people find common interests, having short get-to-know-yous after programs such as coffee and chat, setting up the environment so that people get to know one another in a small group or between short breaks. Creating deep and meaningful relationships combats loneliness. So I'd like to ask you guys a question. If you can respond in the chat box, it would be greatly appreciated. I'd like you to tell me ways that you and your programs have helped build relationships for your participants. So tell me ways that you have helped to build relationships with your participants. Holiday tea. That sounds interesting. That's great. That's one thing. Food brings people together.
Yeah, I was just about to say that too.
It truly does. Julie says, Christmas potluck, 100%. I cannot wait to get back to potlucks. Chatting before and after class. Yes. Yes. Coffee time after Aquasize. You bet. You bet. And you don't realize that when you create these opportunities, you could be creating friendships that help them outside of your programming. Breakfast with morning aerobics participants. I like that.
I like the different music styles as well. The 50 swing that can hit different interests and populations too. So that's a good one.
Zoom coffee clutches while waiting. Yes. Yes, I love these. You guys are great. That's wonderful. So individuals may also feel lonely though because of a health condition that prevents them from participating. So these might be the ones that you don't see. Maybe they have irritable bowel syndrome, so they don't want to attend programs, or they choose to isolate because of anxiety or depression, or those who don't feel comfortable socializing. So if you notice individuals that do attend that maybe have anxiety, or you notice they're disconnected, finding ways to help build the relationships, whether it be maybe one-to-one or talking to them, asking them what they're looking for in the program. Good, thank you, Ben. Always starting off a program with an icebreaker or fun activity. I like that. The comfort zone, that's great, Ben. Yeah, it really does bring people out of their shell. Wonderful, thank you all. So when it comes to combating helplessness, it's to find that balance between giving and receiving care. So as a program leader, you have the ability to give care to the participants by showing your knowledge and your skills. You want to make it the best experience for them. Sometimes though, when we do too much, we actually refuse care from the participants when they offer it. So invite individuals to contribute to the programming so they can give care as well. Do they have a strength that they can share with you, such as singing or baking? Do they maybe want to be paired with a new participant to help them out? Do they want to lead a section of the program? Do they want to help set up or take down? So these are some examples of how to help combat the feelings of helplessness. So you all had such great ideas and what you were doing when it comes to helping combat loneliness and creating those meaningful relationships. I'd like you to put in the chat box now, what are examples of how participants can give back care to those involved in the programming, whether it be you or others? Oh, every year they design aqua shirts. That's wonderful. So the participants give care because they create something and then donate the money back. I love that, Amanda. That is wonderful. Great. You know the routines of others and check in on them if they miss a day. Wow, that's great.
Yes, that's an awesome one too. You're assisting with the program in a way.
Ooh. Delivering or giving cards for people recovering from surgeries or illness, birthday, life events. That's great. And that also goes back to the loneliness because you created that meaningful connection. So you guys are starting to pair them together, which is wonderful. Phone treat to connect with others. That sounds interesting, Amanda. Very neat. Before COVID, you did Julie did a COVID or did a giving tree at Christmas where they could bring in donations from the Salvation Army. Wow, yeah, that is a great way to give care to someone else. Always help with attendance, and they ask us to put the number of participants on the board. That's great. Great job, everyone. That's wonderful examples of how to combat helplessness and allow our participants to give care back as well. So when it comes to boredom, the way to combat boredom is variety and spontaneity. Change things up. Variety and spontaneity can break up routines, which can dull the senses and the mind. When your program is not going as planned, make the changes to engage your participants. Have surprise programming, special guests, or fun days. So this is something that I've always said, and I truly do value it. Planning events are fun, but it's those unexpected, unpredictable events that people remember. So in your chat box, I'd love you guys to write something spontaneous that you have done in your guys' program. I see someone typing, so we'll just wait a moment. Something spontaneous that happens in your programming.
While we're waiting for some answers to come in, I know a story for myself personally. We had a young grandchild of one of the elders in our home pop in one day, and what we were doing in evening completely changed. And actually, like, the little girl ended up running our program, and it was just like Shauna said, something so spontaneous, a guest for the evening, and it was such a fun night. So it kind of addressed that boredom and spontaneity.
Ooh, Julie, I like that one. Water, fitness, dance parties. Bring in non-aquatic instructors. I think that's great. We have so many positive things where dance parties just start, and it's phenomenal. Thank you. Put up lights around the deck this year at the holidays to cheer folks up. Yes, I bet you they loved that. Brought in new equipment and had tried it out during the day. Yes, wonderful. Adding in yoga at the end of some of the aquafit lessons. Yeah, great. And they probably loved it because it was spontaneous and it added variety. Had a themed water fitness class, 80s nights, 70s nights. Oh, those are something I would attend. Those sound very fun. Yeah, we used to have a baby program that ended the same time as aerobics began. Yeah, holding the child, that's wonderful. And it goes in with our intergenerational programming we'll talk about in a bit. That's great. I know we talk a lot about pre-COVID. So many things rules and regulations has kind of stopped some of the spontaneous things that we're able to do when it comes to group programming. So, but these sounds all so wonderful. Thanks all, that's great. So we're gonna tell you some examples of some of the things we're doing to help combat loneliness, helplessness, and boredom in our homes.
Okay, so we'll speak first to loneliness. So this is a photo of an elder who has dementia, who lives at Eden Care Communities. As dementia progresses, what often happens is an individual's long-term memories remain intact, while their short-term memory and memories develop more recently in life become more difficult to recall and are often forgotten. This individual was born in Poland and spent many years growing up there before moving to Canada. As her journey through dementia progresses, she is slowly losing her ability to speak English and reverting back to her first language of Polish as her means of communication. This must have her feeling incredibly lonely at times and feeling frustrated not being able to communicate with others and have care partners or elders understand what she's saying. I was working one day and we had a group of students from a school come by participating in some planned activities together with our elders for the afternoon. The teacher of the class told me through conversation, one of her students became an official Canadian citizen today, and they were so proud of him. I, of course, congratulated the young boy and asked where his family and him originated from. He told me Poland. I asked if he could fluently speak the language, and when he told me yes, I asked if I could introduce him to a special lady. I brought these two individuals together and had him greet her in Polish. Her response will forever stand out as one of my top moments in my career. Her eyes lit up, she reached her hands out to his face and said, my boy," and kissed both of his cheeks. Any feelings of loneliness were alleviated in this moment as the two bonded in further Polish conversation together. It was something so incredible to see, and I'm pretty sure all of us who are witnessing this moment were crying. So the purpose of this story is really just to emphasize that the power of getting to know who your participants are can be such a powerful tool in creating opportunities for further connection and growth. If we didn't know this about this individual, it could have been a missed moment that never happened for her. So now kind of jumping ahead to helplessness. So if you can remember Shauna speaking to this, helplessness is all about providing that opportunity for participants to feel as if they are contributing and giving back. This individual in the photo found meaning by assisting with tasks, not necessarily games. He always wanted to help out, be busy doing just that. We found ways to help engage him in our to-do list, and he loved being included in that. Whether that was helping water the flowers all summer long, wrapping up the garden hose for us after we used it, tending to our tomato plants, which you can see in the photo on the left there, or we'd even provide him a broom and he would love just sweeping our halls. All these things made him feel like he was contributing, which brought him meaning to his day.
All right. So boredom. So here are two photos that demonstrate spontaneity and variety. In the photo in the left, you see that intergenerational activity. So Amanda talked about incorporating the children and getting to hold someone. Intergenerational activities are very, very special, and if you have the opportunity to involve children or young kids, teenagers, any age into the program, you'll see such a benefit. So these two individuals are enjoying time playing at a local park. Nothing is structured and they're able to interact together. If any of you have kids or have been around kids, you know that you cannot plan what a child is going to do. They are the most spontaneous people I know. The activity itself becomes person-directed because they are leading what is happening. There's no rules or specific goals that need to be accomplished in that moment. It's spontaneous. In the photo on the right, you see an individual learning how to tie-dye. It was an activity that was never before offered, but someone expressed interest in trying it. Variety is about having choice and being able to try something new and not always having to do what is scheduled. We have so much variety in our lives. We need to make sure our participants have that variety as well. So finding the meaning in the activity. Meaning is defined by the individual and can be found anywhere. It can be found in the environment, in the activity, in the experience, or in the relationship. Each person's meaning is different. It is important to identify what is meaningful to the person and build upon that. In a group program, you might be able to identify multiple things that people find meaningful. Is it the socialization? Is it the physical activity? Is it getting out of the house? Is it bringing back special memories? Does it help them stay connected and involved in our community? So your role is to help make sure individuals' meanings are met. This is difficult, but very important. It may be grouping certain people together. It may be taking small breaks to allow for socialization. It may be organizing coffee after the program. It may be providing additional exercises for someone to do it individually in their home before or in between program sessions. And by looking at some of our comments, you guys are finding the meaning and you're being able to provide that to them. So that's very, very exciting. So the reason why people attend program vary. So I have a question for you guys. If you were to attend an exercise program, why would you? Why would you attend an exercise program? Community, motivation, connection. Thanks, Sarah. Katie, to do something. Yeah. You don't feel comfortable? Yes. Skills and moves. Hang out with friends. Very good, Erin. Physical fitness and socializing. Claire, that's great. Wonderful. To try something new. To get in shape, feel great, meet new people. Anita, wonderful. Yeah, Colleen, have someone else take the lead. I'm with you, Colleen. Be challenged. Motivation and fun. Wonderful. So as you can see, we all have different meaning when it comes to an activity. We all do it for different reasons. And it's the same for your participants. So I hope this shows the importance of understanding your participants, finding what's meaningful, and being able to build your program to incorporate those or build onto your program to incorporate those. So the photo you guys are looking at might just look like arts and crafts. But this individual, she loves to socialize and visit with other people. It doesn't matter what she is doing with her hands, whether it be art or playing a game, as long as she's surrounded by other people where they can share their stories, they can laugh together and be in each other's company, that's what makes her happy. That is what is meaningful to her. So next we're going to touch upon individual strengths. So we talked about the meaning, person-centered, person-directed care, and within that is our individual strengths. Every individual, group, or community has strengths. It can be an internal strength, which are your talents, your skills, your knowledge, goals, your physical strengths, or it can be your external strengths. Maybe you have that family support, your social support, a positive attitude, or maybe you have those resources, either whether it be community or environmental. When you focus on a person or group strength, it's called strength-based approach. It looks at those positive attributes of those involved rather than the negative ones. So strength-based approach can be applied in multiple different settings and for individuals of all ages. So focusing on a person's strength is person-centered. When you involve them in identifying their strengths and setting SMART goals, it becomes person-directed. So SMART goals are specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're relevant, and they're time-based. So it's important to let the individual identify their goals. Do not set it for them. In my experience, goals that are person-directed tend to hold people more accountable. For example, a participant might say, I want to run a half marathon by January 2022 by running outdoors 3 times a week. So that's the goal they set for themselves. Our role would be to encourage them and to support them where needed. It's important when an individual sets a goal to encourage them for the goal to be realistic. For example, if someone sets a goal saying that I want to work out at a gym once a week, but they don't have the financial means to pay for that gym membership, we're not being realistic. Therefore, it's not going to be attainable. They're not going to be able to accomplish that goal. So focus on that individual strength and let the person see themselves at their best. So things to consider with this approach is not only the person themselves, but the environment as well. As program leads, we need to set people up for success and build upon their individual strengths. When we focus on someone's strength, they tend to be happier, have less stress, more energy, they're more satisfied, and they become more engaged in the program.
Perfect. So a way we can obviously wrap this all together and meet these SMART goals is an API process that recreation therapists use to help guide in providing this support. It allows someone like myself to understand what my role may be in helping someone achieve their goals and ultimately gain a greater sense of independence. The 5 stages include assessment, planning, implementation, evaluation, and documentation. So first here is assessment. Assessments help to understand the strengths and barriers of an individual to best determine what programs would support them in meeting their goals. Recreation assessments will vary based on different organizations and populations. So for instance, you may not use the same thing for seniors versus children. There are some very well-known assessments that have become standardized and used in many different settings. However, some organizations may create their own assessment that's completely tailored to their personal requirements. Now, this assessment step is not limited to just performing that with your client or the individual you're supporting, but valuable information can also be included from family members, maybe coaches, or other interdisciplinary team members to really help gain all that information that's necessary to make your plan. Now, as we go through these steps, I want to relate it back to a recent story so you can really understand the elements in each step as we go through. So some quick background information. Our home is pet friendly and we've had the privilege of owning animals that permanently live within our building. Now, we had a dog by the name of Pepsi who was a 15-year-old Shih Tzu. And at this time, we unfortunately knew that she just may not be in our care for much longer. So we adopted a new dog by the name of Spirit. And Spirit is the dog that you see here in this photo. There was also an elder in a motorized wheelchair that had the responsibility of taking Pepsi out for many years on daily walks. And when we adopted Spirit, she had expressed strong interest in resuming this role with our new dog. So tying this assessment component into this story, there was a behavioral and temperament assessment done on the dog prior to moving into our care. This gave us an important piece of information that Spirit was both good with people and with other dogs. This helped us for behavior inside the home, but also for behavior on walks. The individual taking the dog out for walks also had a motorized wheelchair assessment done to ensure she was independent and capable of driving the power-operated wheelchair safely both inside and outside. There was also clinical depression assessments that played a part that were completed by nurses that indicated that this individual was somebody who experienced high levels of depression and anxiety, which gave us support in why planning this was so important to the elder. So the next step here we see is the planning. And the planning component of the process is when you reflect on all the information you gain from your assessments and everything you've gathered from your clients and other resources. This is where you truly start to develop your goals and objectives. This step is all about creating new programs or activities or figuring out how to adapt existing ones to provide the absolute best support possible. And remember, when planning, you're wanting to set them up for success. So relating this step back to my story with Spirit and the elder, the goal was to provide this elder the opportunity to take part in giving back to our home with something she was passionate about. By helping taking care of the animal, it ultimately helped with her depression and anxiety by not only going out for daily walks, but contributing to a bigger cause where she really felt true purpose and meaning. We had to take into consideration some important safety aspects, such as what if the dog pulled and the leash broke from her grip, resulting in the dog running away, or even worse, tipping her out of her wheelchair. Our plan was providing her a cell phone that she had to take on each walk in case of emergencies. We also found a long lead that would loop around her forearm, and you can actually see that lead in the photo here that she's holding. And we mapped out a route together, so she knew we knew where she would be going and when she would be leaving. All right, the next step here is implementation. And this is where we'll start engaging the individuals and putting our plans into action. This stage will look completely different for everyone because everything we are choosing to implement was specifically designed to help them achieve all of their individual goals and objectives. So as you can see in the photo here on the slide, this was the actual first day that the elder took the dog out for a walk independently with the lead and all of our plans in place. Okay. So the fourth step we see here now is evaluation. This step is all about reflecting on the entire process. And by doing this step, you may discover what went well, so the successes you achieved, and potential areas where maybe didn't go so well that you could make improvements on. Following the evaluation, you always want to make sure that you document. Documentation is used in providing proof. A recreation professional should document at the end of each program. This allows you to comment on strengths or weaknesses, levels of participation, or levels of interest. What we ultimately concluded from this story was, although everything was very successful, the elder had many years of walking a very senior dog. And so when we transitioned a new, very young dog into her care, she just felt a little less confident and felt like she didn't have as much control. So once again, everything went well, but she did think that she would feel better in gaining confidence over time by having somebody accompany her on the walks. It was such an easy adaptation to make, but again, ultimately she achieved her goals and objectives through this whole process. So as you can see, this whole API process, there are many adaptations made along the way. The API process can help to identify individual strengths, which allows us to make adaptations to a program so that they can be successful in what they find meaningful. So adapting things to suit the needs of individual participants is probably one of the most important contributors to successful inclusion in recreation activities. Whether you're a recreation therapist like myself or Shauna here, you're a coach, an activity leader, a program planner, everyone can benefit from having those tools in your toolbox to ensure that you are capable of making appropriate adaptations and modifications to various activities. Essentially, we're all aiming to achieve the same outcome, which is to make sure that participants can get involved and excel in activities in a meaningful way that is both fun and challenging, regardless of the participants' abilities or barriers that they may face. So listed on this slide here that you guys will see, there are some factors that may pose as a barrier to participation. I'll briefly go through these barriers and explain some easy ways that you can adapt them to various activities. So the first one here listed that you'll see is environmental. So environmental barriers may be anything from the facility that the activity is held in, the instructor or leader of that activity. It might be if the activity is held inside or outside and the weather impact due to this. So too cold, too hot, is it windy, is it raining? But also the equipment being used for the activity. So an example of a way to adapt an environmental barrier for an activity such as volleyball or basketball, using lighter, softer, or larger types of equipment. Now, referencing our long-term care home, we play volleyball with our elders, but can you imagine a bunch of 80, 90-year-olds smashing and bumping this hard volleyball over a tall net? I just think it would be like the most ridiculous and unsuccessful activity. But ultimately, what we want to do is we do a low net with a very large balloon. This aims to slow the game down and allows more time to prepare for and execute the proper skill. It reduces number of misses and increases the opportunity for hand-eye coordination to feel successful in the game that they're participating in. This can be applied to individuals with various disabilities, or maybe those who are new to the game and just developing their own skills and confidence. So the next barrier that we see listed on this slide is visual and audio. So some visual and audio barriers may include, are the visual cues to whatever we're doing too small to properly see? Are the sounds too high-pitched and it's uncomfortable to listen to? Or maybe it's too low that they can't even hear anything. Is there too bright of a light that maybe there's a glare? Or is it too dark? Once again, not allowing them to see. So referencing an activity such as bingo, someone who is deaf or hearing impaired, but very cognitively able to participate, may not be able to hear the caller call out the numbers. A very simple modification that you can make is provide a whiteboard. In addition to the caller calling out the numbers, can write these numbers out on the whiteboard so that the individual can visually see as they're playing along. Now, the next barrier that we see here is social. Now, some social barriers, once again, may include, is there too many people and the crowd is too big where some people feel uncomfortable socializing in that big of a group? Maybe an individual is experiencing lack of support from family or from friends. Maybe they have no companion to participate with and don't want to go alone. Or maybe there's not enough people where they really want that social component and they're looking for more people to be involved with. This social barrier is something that I can very strongly relate to. I have grown up my whole life playing very competitive team sports, and I was asked to try out for our wrestling team back in high school. So I did, and I surprisingly did very well, and I placed third provincially for my first year. But I hated every single moment of it. It was such an eye-opening experience because I quickly realized that I gravitate to that social component. Although there's benefits of exercising and I could have done very well if I continued with it, I truly longed for that social component and that connection with other people. So you guys have already kind of mentioned this in your comment chats, which is excellent to kind of already note or to recognize. But offering social alternatives such as meet and greet coffee groups following an early morning aquatics class is a great way to bring people to your program, and it's a great way for people to feel involved. So the next here we see is physical. So physical barriers may include underlying health conditions, an injury that an individual may be experiencing, lack of skill or knowledge for a certain activity, or simply just a lack of interest. Now, this is just an example, but referencing somebody who may have been a lifelong gym member and they unfortunately developed MS later in adulthood. Wanting to maintain that physical activity and therapy in their life may realistically not be able to do so in the way that they once did. However, adjusting to something like a water-based activity helps to support weak limbs through buoyancy, making the individual feel lighter and more in control of their body. The water also provides resistance, which will continue to strengthen muscles. So identifying what will still remain as a successful activity for you will help you still be involved without losing that important aspect in your life. Now, the last barrier here is economical. This may include a person's income level and their ability to afford registration fees or cost of equipment that may be needed for the activity. It may be the community that they live in and its proximity to resources or its amenities. Maybe it's their personal means of transportation. Are they even able to get to the activity? Is it too far away from them? And the last may be education level. Now, this barrier becomes tricky because you may not necessarily be able to adjust it, but it's extremely important to be able to identify that there are individuals who this may affect. So as a recreation leader, are there alternative options to the activities that you offer that you can provide? So can you provide Monday free drop-ins? Can you provide an option of bring a friend for free? Can you reach out to other organizations for funding or grants to assist with the cost of registration or fees? Or could you look into the activity being held in a public space? So once again, the cost may be lowered for your participants. So through all of this, such an important message is it is okay if programs fail. Keep in mind, not all programs go as planned. Sometimes things just don't work. And I have witnessed this so many times and been in these shoes plenty of times myself. Don't dwell on any failures that you feel like you've experienced. See it as an opportunity to learn and to grow. Failure represents an opportunity to reanalyze your goals, adapt your strategies, and advance for further learning opportunities.
Thanks, Alicia. So here are some available resources for you guys to help you on your guys' journey. Feel free to visit Eden Care Community's website to learn about our programs and services offered. The Eden Alternative website offers great resources to learn more about the philosophy of care, their domains of well-being, their 10 principles, as well as person-centered, person-directed care. Another great resource, especially if working with individuals with early to late dementia, the Alzheimer's Society of Canada has some great resources and tips.
Listed next is CTRA, and this provides further information on what recreation therapy is and professional developments as a recreation therapist. Following that, NCTRC, it's our credentialing organization for the profession of therapeutic recreation. These are reference websites, again, if you're looking into the profession or just a little bit more on maybe what this is and how to be involved. Participation Canada, this is a great website. It provides tons of resources and lists a bunch of activities and further information on how to incorporate a healthy lifestyle for yourself.
And lastly, we have the National Council for Certified Activity Professionals. So we stumbled upon this when COVID hit, and it has been a phenomenal resource during COVID. They just offer ideas. They compile everything for programming, online resources, virtual tours. Check it out. There's some really, really great things that you may be able to use for free. So the last thing that we want to talk about today is the Eden Alternatives Domains of Well-Being. So Dr. Bill Thomas, the founder of the Eden Alternative, said that well-being is much larger idea than either quality of life or customer satisfaction. It is based on a holistic understanding of human needs and capacities. Well-being is elusive, highly subjective, and the most valuable of all human possessions. So the Eden Alternative has identified 7 domains of well-being. Together, they serve as a framework for asking thoughtful questions that help identify unmet needs for those we serve. So what are they? Identity. Nothing exists without identity. It's our stories. It's our histories. It's our life. What makes your participants unique? Who are they? So this can be something simple like asking them their preferred name. Are they more comfortable being called a nickname? Do they want to tell you their story through coffee and chat? Are there things that you can incorporate into your program to help strengthen their identity? You know, maybe you have a group of farmers that are all getting together and maybe that's their common interest. How can you incorporate that identity that they have to make it more enjoyable? How are we getting to know the participants and highlighting who they are? So again, identity, nothing exists without it. Growth. Growth is learning, expanding, and enriching your life. We grow from the day we're born to the day we die. No matter our age or ability, we can learn something new. So the photo in the slide demonstrates growth. A group of individuals, all over the age of 75, got together to learn how to play the ukulele. Many of these individuals have never played an instrument before. Over the course of 4 months, they met weekly and learned multiple songs. They showcased their growth by deciding to have a mini concert for the rest of the home to enjoy. This goes back to person-centered. They chose to participate and they chose and figured out a way to hold a mini concert. It was a phenomenal, phenomenal opportunity to witness. So autonomy. Autonomy is choice, freedom, self-determination. It's about allowing individuals to be their own person and respecting an individual's choice, even though we do not agree with it always. This is a hard one. As a program lead, are you listening to what this person has expressed in their words, in their actions, in their tone of voice? Are you inviting them to make choices and decisions in programming? Some people that come into our programs don't get to make a whole lot of choices in their lives. So for example, people in long-term care, they maybe didn't choose the home they were living in. Maybe they have a roommate. They didn't choose that roommate. So making sure that we optimize choices that people can offer. Some people that you offer programming to may live in supportive homes, and maybe meals are cooked for them and they don't have that choice of what they get to eat every night. So being able to provide them that choice in our programming and our recreation is very, very important. Next is security. It's feeling safe, having dignity and respect. So do your participants feel safe in the program? Safe from judgment? Do they feel secure in the knowledge of the program? Do they feel respected? Do they trust you? So if an individual is shy, they may not want to be called to talk in front of the group or to share their story, but they may want to talk with you one-on-one, and that's what makes them feel safe. So being able to identify that. Next is connectedness. So that's being involved, engaged, and connected to people, time, place, and the environment. So it's not just being surrounded by others, it's about building meaningful relationships with others. So you cannot age by yourself. It's important to help people stay connected. So I want you guys to think about what you do to stay connected in your community and other people. Next is meaning. It is what you value and find sacred. So they're the things in your day that make your life better. Meaning, as discussed earlier, can be found in objects, environments, relationships. As human beings, we're always seeking meaning. And last is joy. It's happiness, it's pleasure, delight, contentment, and enjoyment. Moments of joy often catch us by surprise, and it's those unexpected moments of happiness. We all experience joy. So remember the last time you laughed, that true belly laugh. You laughed till your belly hurt. This is an example of joy. You didn't plan it, probably spontaneous. So person-centered, person-directed program incorporates the 7 domains of well-being. It is identifying that what the individual values and making sure programs reflect their needs, preferences, and values. Programs need to incorporate choice, provide dignity, respect, self-determination, and purposeful living. So I had an aha moment this morning, about half hour before this presentation. And I looked at my fridge and I seen this photo, and you'll have a hard time seeing it. But this here is a photo that my 2-year-old son created with stickers. And I looked at that photo and I began to reflect on these domains of well-being and about myself. So I would love to share this example with you guys. So just from looking at this photo, I can understand all of my 7 domains of well-being. So for my identity, I am a mother. I have a wonderful little boy. 3 years ago, that was not part of my identity. But the moment he was born, it became a huge part of who I am. For growth, over the last 2 years, I've grown so much. I've learned patience. I never had patience before. I learned that. I've been able to take a step back and look at life through my child's eyes. For autonomy, my son's in that stage right now where he has to do everything himself, and he has to make those choices. He wants to choose what to eat on his plate. He wants to choose what to wear when he wakes up. He wants to make all these decisions and do things that terrify me. He's very adventurous. Mistakes are opportunities to learn and grow. And this is one I struggle with the most, but by letting him make those choices, it's helping him to grow. So although I don't agree with all the choices, being able to let him explore those is helping him in the end. Security. I feel secure. I have a wonderful job. I have benefits, and I can support my son and my family. Connectedness. Watching my son be engaged with the environment around him, exploring, watching him build relationships with grandparents, with other children. Having my son has connected me with new people. I've built new friendships because of it. Meaning. We talk about how meaning is different for everyone. So to you, it's just a picture. This right here is just a photo. But to me, it means so, so much more. It brings me meaning. And last is joy. It's an easy one. This photo is that unexpected happiness. So when my son gave me this photo, he was so proud of himself, and it gave me it warmed my heart. So it brought me that joy, that unexpected happiness. So that's my example of my domains of well-being and how it was met by just looking at this photo. And if we can incorporate the domains of well-being into our programming and making sure we're really getting to know that individual, helping them build relationships, combating that loneliness, that helplessness, that boredom, to following that API process to make sure that we're finding ways to adapt the program to make sure that we're focusing on those individual strengths and that they truly do feel valued. So I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming today and for being engaged in the chat. We really do appreciate you listening to us. And if you have any questions or you'd like to learn more, maybe you just want to reach out to either myself or Alicia, we would be happy to help you. Please email us and follow up and let us know what you're doing. We're very passionate about what we do, and it's always nice to see what others are doing, and sometimes, you know, share your stories with others, because we sometimes recreate the wheel when we don't need to. Share what you're doing with each other, what programs you're doing, how you're overcoming obstacles, because the more we share, the better we get in our roles. So thank you so much. We really do appreciate it.
Yes, again, kind of speaking behind Shauna here too, I just want to thank you all for taking time to listen to us this afternoon. It was a privilege to be able to provide this information to you guys. So, and again, thank you, Shauna, for allowing me to jump in on this opportunity. I loved it.
Yeah, thank you so much, ladies. I'm going to leave your contact information up on the screen for a couple minutes, and then I'll bump us over for any questions that anybody has. We'll take a few questions. Please enter those in the chat box. I loved everything that you presented. I think it was such a valuable perspective in terms of some of the things that we as aquatic professionals, we get stuck in a rut because we perhaps in the past, let's use aquatic fitness, aquafit class, aquasize is what a lot of us are familiar with. We get frustrated when our clients are very demanding about the time and scheduling changes and instructor changes, and it's very social for them. And so, not to defend a lot of us, but we've often been burned by that experience. And so we can be very unwilling to recenter the client in the way that you've shared. And I think the language, as you said right from the beginning, is so important, because the words we choose subconsciously and consciously inform our effort and our desire to make these changes, and yeah, then we kind of become these negative Nellies because we don't want to get to know them as well as we really should, honestly. A couple of things I wanted to mention that really struck me to give people a chance to enter any questions in the chat. I love that you said too that your work is primarily with older seniors, but really this could apply to any person of any age or background that we're not connecting with at our facility, and that human habits, like you said, being fulfilled and those areas that help people feel wellness can be not just recreation, but plants, being outside, children, music, and that we need to individualize what we're doing as programmers. So I loved how you were sharing that. I think sometimes we think of seniors as a type of person, but a senior could be a retired teacher, a senior could have been a soldier, a teacher could have been a nurse. They had a life before they became a senior in our eyes, and we need to understand that variety of experience. And I'm sure you ladies have lots of stories like that where you got to know your clients and realized, the lives they'd lived before you met them. One of the questions I had, and we'll see if there's any questions coming in, is you talked about identifying goals. So the lady who wanted to ride the motorcycle, how did that process look in the home? So they say to you, I want to ride a motorcycle, or you're thinking about this upcoming birthday. How did those goals get identified?
So being that person directed, we really want them to bring it to us. And some people, we do provide those suggestions, but that example there, it was all identified by her, and she said, I want to do this, and maybe it's just dialing the phone number so she can call her daughter, but it's setting them up for success and providing that support where needed. And so sometimes we love the people that we serve and we want to do so much for them that we just take over, and it's really identifying it and taking that step back and saying, what can they do? Because they can do so much, and how they can set that self up for success. So really it's taking that step back and really observing what they want and providing that support.
How would you address it? Sometimes in a public pool, let's say, we literally can't do exactly what they want. Like, we can try and break it down into what we can do, but for whatever reason, budget, time, we literally cannot do what they want. How do you address those conversations in your experience when it's what the client really wants and we can't get that much closer?
Yeah, and so I think with that, sorry, Alicia, jump in at any time.
Go for it, that's okay.
maybe it's having that survey before the program to see what they want, and asking those open-ended questions, because yes, 100%, you're not always going to be able to do what the individual wants because of maybe financial, maybe the way the building's set up, all those different things that are out of your control. And so holding that survey, asking the open-ended questions, that's the most important. That's how you get the information from the individuals of what they're truly looking for. And although you don't do exactly what they want, there may be ways that you can incorporate aspects into it, so they get that value, they find the meaning and the purpose in the activity.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything, Alicia?
No, I think Shauna did an excellent way of explaining that. Just another recommendation is, again, I'm not too sure like how your programs work together as an aquatic class, but I see on the side, like how can we incorporate other people's opinions or concepts or things that they want addressed in a larger setting? What if it was like once a month, so-and-so gets to pick what we focus on today, and it's a rotation of needs as you still continue your aquatics class, but it's again identifying what Susan may find important today versus what Tom might identify as important next month. But it's taking time to recognize that, again, everybody has a different meaning and we can address it in a way as well.
Well, and I think that's so valuable, but we get so scared, some of us in public facilities, because we think, well, if I do it for Mrs. Smith, then Mr. Jones is going to be upset, and we're not even willing to try it. And I think what you're saying has a lot of value. I've seen this. My mother's aquatic facility, she's in her 70s, she goes to, and the regular lap swimmers, they rotate between music preference. So she'll proudly tell me that she brings in her opera CDs, and then she has to suffer through the rock CDs on different days. But they have managed to somehow navigate that preference, as you've continued to articulate throughout the session. Like, that is so meaningful for them. I think we as like younger able-bodied people, we're not recognizing that this is something that is very meaningful maybe. And so we should try a bit harder to accommodate their preferences. How many chances in a day or a week or a month are their preferences actually met, right?
Yeah, and in saying that too, by being able to actually accommodate somebody's preference who has vocalized that, hey, this is my interest, I would love to try that. They might also find that someone else may not have vocalized that, but that was also their purpose and meaning, and they found interest in that as too. So that also identifies connectedness within the group by being able to say, hey, I'd love to do this, and it bonds somebody with someone else who also would love to try that as well. So it's a great opportunity just to, again, get to know your audience and who's in your groups.
Mm-hmm.
And also being able to have resources for people. So if you're not able to meet that need, maybe someone else can. Maybe there's another program within your guys' facility that would offer something similar. And so maybe it's offering those suggestions or just areas they can reach out to if you're not able to 100% meet their need.
Well, and I think that's such an interesting point that leads me to another thing I wanted to bring up, which is I think a lot of aquatic professionals, some facilities are working very collaboratively with the dry programmers, the dry recreation people. Other facilities are not. It's completely siloed. And even to that extent, we see a lot of facilities that have a children and youth position and then an adult position, but then the seniors or different communities and populations don't sit in either. And so they're not being served. And so I love what you said about, like, let's find out the why or the what they want, and then maybe take a step back and say, I can't do this in the pool in its current form. I can do this in the pool, or maybe Jocelyn in dry programs can do this kind of iteration, or we can work together and kind of try to approximate what they want. Another thing I wanted to talk about is you mentioned after action reviews for programs, which I think is so valuable. Many facilities don't do this at all. What kinds of things are you looking at from a staff perspective when you review the programs? Like, what are the kind of questions you ask yourself for evaluation process?
I look at, like, again, if it's something that's meaningful to them, if they're participating in activity because we're forcing them or they're not actually interested, that's not meeting their need and their purpose or their identity. Where I am right now, We also want to make sure that people aren't at risk. This is their home and their permanent residency. So maybe everything we offer may not identify with them in a large group setting. So if we see that they're not socializing, not interacting, I want to find ways that we can still meet their needs by maybe doing one-to-one, or that animal might be their way of feeling validated and connected. So being able to document in participation along the way, but also being able to look at other documentation, like I referenced the clinical depression scales. There's so many other things, but really getting that holistic view of where my role is or what we can do. Once again, just because this is their permanent residency, I have a little bit more responsibility in making sure that I'm aware of what's going on so that, they aren't feeling isolated in any way.
And if you are able to make adaptations to the program, when you ask them what they liked and what they didn't like, it becomes that person directed. So they're now helping to maybe make changes to future programs that will make it more successful. And again, you might not be able to do all of it, but by taking those suggestions, you're able to make the changes. And again, it goes back to, I don't know anyone's age, but no one here has probably been 100. And so when you're planning an activity for a 100-year-old, you need to look at what they want to do, and they're going to be the ones to help you. And we can think we know what they want and predict we know what they want, but we really won't know unless we ask them. And that can come in that evaluation and that documentation stage of that API process.
Well, and I think that's so key just in general. I know a lot of aquatic facilities, they really don't solicit feedback because they're scared of what they're going to hear, right? We've been in situations where our public facility has been trashed in the local Facebook group or the rant and rave. And so we tend to shy away now from asking for feedback. And there's a whole separate conversation for those of you who were here last year. You can see the 2020 POOLaide webinar. We talked about how to do a survey properly to make sure you get data that's actually helpful. But I think to both of these presenters' point is you need that feedback that, yes, I love this. And yes, it helped me, because we in aquatics, we often quantify by numbers. I had 7 kids in this program. I had 200 kids this semester. And frankly, if one person had a transformative experience, that can help justify those small group activities, those one-on-one, those 2 or 3-on-1 that can be hard to sell to management, but are so transformative to individuals in ways that are difficult to quantify, but one blurb or one feedback, couple sentences can really help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you find there is more of a willingness probably in your sphere of work that it is acceptable to do smaller programs that way, that's commonly accepted?
In our role here, so I also previously, before this role, I worked in a very institutionalized setting, and it was all numbers too. It was quality or quantity over quality. And at Eden Care Communities, we truly are supported through the Eden Alternative, and being that person-centered, person-directed, that if we can touch one person's life, that is the most important thing. And it doesn't matter how many people attend, as long as we are meeting the needs of everyone. And some really want to participate, and others maybe not as regularly. So yes, we do feel very supported in that aspect, that we don't need to meet our certain status quo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think to that point, just for aquatic professionals thinking about those conversations with management, sometimes getting your boss or director to articulate, get them to just state what is unspoken. Yes, this is about numbers. Yes, this is about revenue, can also prompt the conversation that, hey, recreation and aquatics and wellness is more than that. I think a lot of organizations that I've worked with, they don't even realize that they're so guided by the numbers. And then when we take a step back and say, well, what are we doing in this facility for those people who are coming off of surgery or coming off of a pregnancy or coming off of, I love the bingo example. That's something that would never have occurred to me, and yet is so basic. But even it's that learning style, that presentation style we talk about so much in instructing. But yet I think bingo, what's special about bingo? But that modification makes it so accessible to more people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, so we use informative inquiry when we ask questions, and it's really putting that positive spin on questions. So you're pulling what the positive that people want out of it. And you might get something one day that says, you know, I didn't want to socialize with people. I had fears, and coming to this program really did A, B, and C for me. And that is going to speak volumes when it comes to changing the program, or making modifications so that it better fits the need for certain people. And so sometimes we need to challenge the processes. And that's what we do with Eat and Care communities with a person-centered, person-directed approach. We're challenging what's happening right now. I know most homes are very institutionalized, long-term care focused, but yeah, challenging what's happening and making sure that we're advocating for the needs of the participants. And so with you guys, it's probably paid. So making sure you advocate for the programs that the individuals actually want.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's do a last call for questions. If anybody has any questions, this is our last call. Pop those in the chat box. I think this has been such a helpful conversation to have. I love the resources that you shared. We'll make sure all of those links are on the show notes page. Everybody who's still on the chat, you can see in the chat box, I've pinned today's session. It'll be updated with a webinar recording that's available, as well as additional resources. And I would challenge everybody, whether you're aquatics or dry recreation or whatever, to think about every facility. Like inherently, I think in recreation, we come from a place of privilege and able bodies, and a lot of us are we're wellness focused, and it's a priority for us. And not everybody has that same ability. And I know that was something that I really appreciated in our emails and conversations leading up to this session, that I've become more aware of my own able-bodied privilege and how other people experience recreation. Chair yoga is what's appropriate for some people with mobility restrictions. Hot yoga might be appropriate for someone else. And it's all shades of something that can benefit people. Even if we don't have a personal interest in it, we shouldn't limit the availability and access for others who might prefer that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just a side thought when it comes to that broad group and trying to meet the needs, it might be even just saying additional things. So, you know, if someone is there for the physical, really encouraging them. Maybe someone's there for the social or listening to the music. It's like, oh yeah, listen to that music. Isn't that great? And engaging them in other ways while doing the program, or maybe giving the instruction in multiple ways. So, you know, move this way. If you're not able to do that, try doing this, or, you know, be spontaneous and break out a dance move. So really engaging them to focus on those strengths. And it is so difficult in a very broad group. It is difficult. But maybe all they need is those domains of well-being and being identified by their proper name. Something as simple as that, might make all the difference. And so by taking what we've hopefully taught you today, you'll be able to incorporate that. And even if you have one person that experiences those 7 domains, you have been successful.
Love that. Alicia, any final thoughts you'd like to add?
No, I think, again, I just thank you for this opportunity. It's always so nice to be able to share our stories. We're so passionate about our work, and, you know, the people who we get the privilege of getting to know over the years. So it's just really nice. So I thank you again for the opportunity, and thank you everybody for your participation.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. We've got Shauna Reles and Alicia Andrusiak. Sorry about I butchered your names at the beginning. I do apologize. I'm going to do a little bit of I'm going to be talking now about the upcoming sessions. So our presenters are welcome to turn off their cameras, their microphone, exit without ending the meeting. I'll just give a kind of rundown what's coming up next week. So thanks again, ladies. And anybody who had any learnings from our presenters, do share those in the chat box so that they can kind of see what you found.
Awesome. See you guys.
All right. So thank you so much to everyone who stayed for that session. Our sessions with the POOLaide webinars, one of the goals that I have is ensuring that We have the ample time for our speakers to present, and we don't have a hard cutoff with these sessions. That is important to me. I did attend a webinar this week that literally cut off at the hour, and no questions were answered, and the speaker, it just, that's not something that we believe in. So we want to make sure that we give our presenters enough time. And so I appreciate those of you who've been able to stay, or those of you who catch up with us later on the recording. I don't know why I'm quite so small, but that is what it is. So next week we have 3 sessions coming up. Next week on Monday, March 15th, we have Project Gaps, Who's Responsible for What, with Jamie Lopes. That will be taking place on Monday. Let me put the link in the chat box. There is some prizes in Monday's session, so if you have the ability to attend live, it will be a great session. Looking forward to that. Coming up on Wednesday next week, we have Joshua Koch. Some of you will know from Sherwood Park, Alberta. He's going to be doing a session on customer service called Creating Service Magic. And this is going to be a good foundational session for those of you who are looking for strategies to work with staff regarding developing better customer service techniques and strategies that can be implemented at your facility. We do recognize that the COVID-19 pandemic, there's a lot of restrictions in terms of how many customers you can serve, how many staff you have, what that looks like. But I've heard Josh speak before, and he's really engaging. He brings in a lot of different business expertise from different brands you may be familiar, such as Disney or Starbucks. And I think you're really going to enjoy this session as kind of a classic topic that we can all benefit from having extra information. Coming up next Friday, we are going to have business lessons from outside of aquatics. So I know this one is kind of confusing. Why would I bring in some business mentors who don't work in aquatics, don't work in recreation, have never worked in aquatics, have never worked in recreation? But one of the pain points I frequently encounter as a consultant to commercial public aquatic facilities is that there is pools are not nimble, which I don't expect them to be in terms of social media or business strategy, but there are often some very basic business lessons that we as individuals in our own careers and our own goals and our own facilities, kind of as businesses, some basic strategies that would be helpful to us in growing and developing either ourselves as professionals or our facilities. And so this is not going to be business school in 60 minutes, but it is going to be one of our presenters, Pam, I'm trying to remember her married name, Pam Wright. She works for the software company Adobe. She's been with them for 15 years. And she is a VP in London, England. And she's just going to share some of her own professional experience in terms of how she's advanced her career. And she never went to business school. She didn't even have a bachelor's degree right away. So she's taken some very basic lessons, and she's going to be sharing them with us as ways that we can improve our own careers and our own facilities in a very accessible and conversational way. So that is it for today. Thank you everyone for being here. If you have any questions, I will be in the chat box for a few minutes. And I thank you for your time. Have a great weekend if you are off this weekend. Thank you for working if you are working this weekend. Make sure you get out and take some time for yourself. Thank you for being here. I will be going back in a few minutes looking at the comments on Instagram for those of you who were interested in winning the towel. I do appreciate your support, and I hope that we see you at some webinars next week. We've got 2.5 weeks left, so fitting in lots that we can here and there. Thank you again to our presenters, and I'm Katie Crysdale, if you don't know who I am, and thanks for being here today.